join me here at the Historic Carp Society's Horseshoe Lake to talk about Trakker's Impact Zig Float. We're going to go through how to set it up, how to use it, how to get the best from it, and hopefully it's going to put some fish on the bank for you this year. So for me, zig fishing in early spring is an absolute deadly tactic. I think it's a deadly tactic throughout the year, but at this time of year when those fish are trying to find a nice bit of warm water where essentially they can just sit and be happy. And I think that's why the common misconception is fish spend hours and hours of time on the bottom eating bait. It's a misconception. Whenever you've seen any underwater footage, you see fish drifting around mid-water and then they drop down and eat some bait. So all you're doing by zigs is putting bait where they don't have to essentially move. They're attacking it, they haven't got hands, they haven't got fingers, they can't work out what anything is. They essentially have to put it in their mouth to find out what it is. Right then, so that's the rods now out for an hour. And I say specifically an hour because when you're working adjustable zigs, it's good to do it in a sort of methodical way. So all I do is I set a timer on my watch for an hour, and then every hour I'll make my adjustments. Now, the adjustments do vary here. So what I did is when I cast out all three rods, my left-hand rod went out, hit the surface, I made sure that the foam had all disengaged, and then what I did is I pulled that float all the way to the net resistance of the lead. And then what that means then is I know that because I'm using a 4-foot tail, essentially that's about 4.5 foot off by the time you add the boom in as well. So that started 4.5 foot off the bottom. And then when this alarm goes off every hour, I'm going to pay off a foot of line, therefore raising up in the water a foot. My right hand rod is exactly the opposite to that. So I cast it out, yet again made sure everything disengaged. Saw the float go under, counted down 4 foot back onto my reel, so I knew that that foam was just under the surface. And then every hour on the hour, I'm going to pull that down a foot. So essentially what I'm doing is working those two up and down in the water column. What that allows you to do is to explore the full water column in half the time as if you both started in the same position. And then my middle rod, essentially I'm using this almost as a fixed zig. Because out there when I did the marking this morning, I know it's 14 foot. So I know that halfway in that water column is 7 foot. So pulled it all the way to the bottom, so that's 4.5, paid it up 3 to give me sort of 7.5 feet. So that middle rod is going to stay more or less in situ because I'm working those rods either side of it up and down in the water column. So how do you adjust them? So couldn't be easier. First thing first, knock off your alarm because quite frankly there's nothing more annoying than hearing someone pull their stuff through an alarm. Knock it out with a line clip, and then what I've done on my rods is I've got a little mark at 1 foot. So I'm going to pinch the line at that 1 foot marker, and I'm going to wind my spool back in until my thumb meets the line clip. So that now means that that's moved a foot down. Adjust your bobbin and knock your alarm back on. Now, as I said, that's now pulled that down 1 foot. My left hand rod in a minute, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pay that up a foot. So yet again, one's come down, one's come up. And the idea is somewhere in the middle they should meet, and that's where hopefully the fish are. And then you know you've got that adjustable zig position right. Now to pair up with the Impact Zig Floats, I've got the new wrap counters. Now a lot of people are using them for measuring wraps for how far out they are, but when you're adjusting zigs many times, and if you've got a memory like mine, like a bit of a sieve, I do forget where I am. So what these wrap counters allow me to do now is make sure I can move that now, so it signifies that that one has moved down another foot. And that just means that I can come here, check at what my depth is, and adjust as and where that is. And then using that left-hand one as well, it means that hopefully by the time I found where those fish are, I've got those markers more or less meeting in the middle. Right then guys, so the Impact Zig Float, dead easy to set up. I'm just gonna go through it step by step. So you get loads of bits and pieces obviously in the pack. Start off with the boom. So main line goes through the large swivel on the boom itself. Then we come to the float, thread it straight through the bottom, all the way through to the top. And then ignore the lid for a second because that just adds another element you don't need to worry about quite yet. Through the custom rubber grommet, and then your chosen knot onto the small loop of the barrel swivel. And then in essence, that's all but ready. Then obviously take whatever lid cap of choice you want, because you've got a bit of ripple on the water. I want to put on the bright yellow one, and then that just bayonet fits into the body of the float. Pull the grommet into the matching groove in the housing, pull the body of the swivel in, and then all you need to do then is add your lead to the boom, and obviously then when you go gas it out, the boom sits inside the float. Attach your rig to the top, and that is your Impact Zig Float ready to go. I think zig fishing is certainly a trial by error tactic. I spent many years hatching around little ideas using bugs and bits of foam and etc, etc. I think the biggest thing with zig fishing is there's loads of accessible media. Learn as much as you can, but zig fishing for me is a go and do it tactic. I think a lot of people dip in with one zig here and one zig there. Oh, it's not worked. They put it at a certain depth, one colour, throw it out, leave it for 24 hours and then moan it's not gone off. You wouldn't do that with your bottom baits rods. You change your hook bait colour, you change spots, you move it around. I think with zig fishing, it's a two-footed tackle. You've got to be all in, 3 on them, working the depths, working the colours, moving them around, keeping an eye out for fish, and certainly don't be deterred by a failure. If you blank on the bottom for 6 months, you still go and fish it the next time. But zigs are the same. You've got to try them, but go all out. Well, that's all 3 of the floats out on a session for myself. But for now, from this piece, what I hope you learned is how to set it up, how to use it, and how to get the best from your Impact Zig Float. But for me, right now is the best time to be out zig fishing. So grab your Impact Zig Floats and get on the bank.